My name is Katrina Bogdon, if you don't know me, and I am a naturopathic doctor here in Springfield and Seymour, Missouri. So hello to all of my clients, but in the meantime, I want to bring you a video from our farm and talk a little bit about how do we bring the beautiful spring greens that are coming up in our gardens right now and get them into our food and incorporate those. So a lot of the things that you might be pulling out as you prepare your garden beds this spring are many times are edible, and so we're going to talk about which of those things that you can incorporate into a lovely spring salad. And we're also going to go ahead and take some of our chicken farm eggs and cook those up in the Instapot to add to our salad as well. So join me. Before we head out on our herb walk, just a reminder to those of you who are growing edible plants and herbs, when you thin your little plants and herbs, you can take those off too and add them to your salads. Now let's head on out and check out the farm. So these are our turkeys. They're not part of the wild edibles, but they're going to seem to join us. They follow me around like I'm mama or something. Okay. So this first wild edible that I want to show you, this is chickweed here. Usually, if you pull it up, it can come up like in mats, and it has this beautiful little flower right here. Its scientific name is Stellaria media, standing for like little star. So yeah, you just see how that looks, and it's coming all up in the gardens right now. So if you're out and you're gardening and you're wanting to pull this stuff up, this is what just kind of pulls up in sheets when you look at it. And it's all coming up in my garden right now, this stuff here. So that's all chickweed. And these little heart-shaped leaves here, this is violet, so Viola odorata. In a little while, it's going to start putting up beautiful violets, lots of blues and whites all over your yard generally. Or at least in mine, we see lots and lots. And that flower and even the leaf is edible. And so you see how it has that heart-shaped leaf here. Here are some violets that came out and bloom in our yard this week. Okay, the other thing that we're seeing coming up right now, this right here is a vinca, I believe. This right here we're not going to use as a wild edible, so don't confuse it with violet. If you notice the shape of the leaves, they look different here. They're not heart-shaped like the others are. This right here is some dandelion, early coming up. These, of course, are edible. The leaves, especially in the spring, are really good to eat. Later in the fall, they're going to get really bitter, not be so tasty, but they're mild enough to enjoy right now in your salads. If you eat a lot of them, you want to be just a little cautious there. They do have a bit of a diuretic effect. So this here is ground ivy. You can add it to your salads. You definitely want to do it early in the spring when it's less pungent, but it has a little bit maybe like a minty flavor, but also kind of pungent. It's a little furry on my tongue is the way I would say it. But you can add a few leaves to a salad and it definitely gives it some added flavor and taste. Here's some more dandelion leaf, followed by some young dock leaves, which you can eat while they're still young and before they get mature. This is red bud. The tree's covered, of course, in the red buds. They'll open up some. They're beautiful on salads. And then this is trout lily. It's a fabulous spring ephemeral, and I just delight to see it. I understand you can eat the flowers and the leaves on salads, but I kind of like it too much, so I leave it alone. Then, of course, you can also look at your garden edibles. There's some parsley that's coming up, followed by a little bit of lemon balm in my garden. And then some garlic chives that I had growing. And a little bit of salad burnet, which tastes like cucumber. And some thyme as well. A friend of mine who lives in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Jenny Hickens Thompson, was gracious enough to send me some pictures of some early spring edibles that are coming up in her yard. I figured this would help since they're ahead of the growing season of us, but these will be coming up soon in our area too. When you were a kid, you might have bit into some of these heart-shaped leaves. They taste really sour. I call this wood sorrel, but it goes by a lot of different names. You just want to be careful not to eat too many of them because they are high in oxalates. This is a picture of young lamb's quarter, which can be eaten on salads. Then there is plantain, and this is here in the young stage. It will taste somewhat mucilaginous if you add it to your salads as well. And then finally, here's a little bit of shepherd's purse. You can eat the seed tops and the flowers in the early stages. For our salad today, we're going to include some eggs from our farm. And here are chickens, rooster, and turkey hanging out and hiding under the bushes. If you happen to have an Instapot laying around the house and you haven't dusted it off or tried it yet, or even a comparable pressure cooker, I want to encourage you to start playing with it during this times. It can do so much for you. So we're going to do something very simple today. We're going to go ahead and just make hard-boiled eggs to add to our salad. So in order to do this, you'll want to have a bit of a trivet there. So we're going to open that up just like so and set it into the Instapot. Okay, next what we're going to do is, my particular Instapot, they usually call for a certain amount of water when you cook things. Sometimes it's 1 cup for certain ones. We have a larger one, so it calls for 500 mLs. So we're going to go ahead and pour that in. And then finally we have our farm eggs here. And one of the really neat things about the Instapot is that usually when you hard boil farm eggs and they're fresh, they are very difficult to peel. But with an Instapot, that takes that problem away. And so we're just going to go ahead and put these eggs in. You might notice that some of them look maybe a little dirty. It's just that some of those blue ones have stains on them. They don't wash off. So that's why we're going to use those today. Okay. And then I'm going to take my lid. I think this is probably one of the more difficult parts about the Instapot. It's getting the lid on if you've never done this before. But usually it has just an arrow right here that you'll want to line up with the front, and you're just going to turn it ever so slightly and get it in balance there, and then lock it into place. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hit pressure cook, and I usually set mine at 5 minutes. If you want it a little more well done, then go ahead and go for 7 minutes. And I don't have to press start or anything on this one. Everyone's a little different, but shortly it's just going to beep and it's going to say it's on. The other thing, we're going to go ahead and lift this up just a little bit that we have to do next. I'm going to try to bring this over so you can see. Okay, is that I have to set the pressure relief valve. So I turn it back here so that it's going to be able to build up steam. So we can see that our pressure is building up now and steam is coming out. This is completely normal. And we'll know that everything is at pressure when that button pops up. Once the button pops up, a little bit of time will lapse and then the timer starts on your Instapot. So our timer just went off. I'm going to very, very carefully change the valve and turn that, and the steam's going to come out. So with hard-boiled eggs, we're doing what's called a quick release. That is, as soon as the timer goes off, we let the pressure go. And a safety thing is that you really could burn yourself. You know, I can take a little bit of risk there and just use my finger, but they do recommend use a towel or use a device just to go ahead and turn it over so that you don't accidentally burn yourself. We know that it'll be finished when the button pops down, and at that point it's safe to go ahead and unlock this lid and to take out our eggs. So once that button pops down, now we can go ahead and open the Instapot, and to do this we're just going to go ahead and turn it slightly and then lift up. And then we're going to want to very carefully get those eggs quickly into a bowl of cold water. I think I burnt my tongs last night accidentally, but they're good. Cooking something and tried to take it off the griddle while it was still hot, and this is plastic. Probably not the smartest idea. And some of my eggs, they've already cracked open, I see. Oops, there we go. That one's already open. And we're just going to let it sit in the cold water for 1 minute.
So some of these have already cracked, so we're just going to go ahead and peel them. You see how easy they peel after sitting in the cold water and being done in the Instant Pot. This is one of the reasons I really love doing eggs, especially fresh eggs in the Instant Pot. And the rest of these, I think we're just going to go ahead and let sit, and we'll use those later, put those in the refrigerator.
So I have a couple words about safety before we add the herbs from our garden and our yard. Wherever you collect the plants, first of all, make sure you are collecting from a place that's not right next to the road where you're getting a lot of exhaust fumes and things, or also at a space that hasn't been sprayed heavily with chemicals. And just as a note, a lot of our parks have been sprayed. The second thing that you're going to want to consider here is to make sure that you have a good positive plant ID. So we talked about what these things look like today, but certainly consider getting a plant identifier on your phone as an app where you can take a picture of it and get a second opinion. Look at a couple of other pictures on the internet, make sure you have the right plant that you're looking for. And then the last thing I want you to consider is that with any of the plants that you choose, don't go out and try to eat massive amounts of them. I mean, today we're adding a little bit to a salad so you can get a little bit of the flavor on those that are edible. But let's say that you were to turn around and pick, say, oxalis or wood sorrel, for an example, and you ate a bunch of that. That might put somebody at a risk of a kidney stone. And certainly if you're on strong medications or have a pre-existing condition, and you're going to have more than just a taste on your salad, talk to me before you consider doing that on a regular basis, just to make sure there's not anything that might possibly cause harm or interact. Some of these indeed could be very medicinal and wonderful, but at the wrong amounts and not the correct individual, it would have the potential sometimes to cause harm too. So you just want to be cautious about that. But again, with the small taste that we're doing today, shouldn't be a problem. Really, the sky's the limit on what you want to do as far as the base of your salad. And I just happen to have here some spinach that's just torn up, and then I have this beautiful purple carrot that I want to use today that I'm going to add to my salad as well, and a little bit of celery. So that will just make the base. And then from there, I'll go ahead and I'll decide to see what herbs I want to add. And I'm just going to take my hard-boiled egg and add that to the salad as well. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be putting on our salad. And you can see them a bit differently than when you saw them outside. These right here are the garlic chives that I've grown in my garden for several years, and they've just naturally been coming up on their own. Then we have the young dock leaves. And again, you don't want to eat these when they're really big. They get rather tough, but you can eat them when they're really young and tender. And then these guys are dandelion greens, while they're again nice and young and tender in the spring. You won't want to probably eat them in the fall. They get really, really bitter, but that's a good time to collect the root. And then these little tiny things here, one of my favorite herbs to grow. This is salad burnet, and it came back up on its own, but when you taste it, to me, it tastes a little bit like cucumber, and it's just starting to come back. And then we have here, we've got these beautiful violets, so you can get a nice close-up and see what they look like there. And they come in two different colors, at least in my yard and many other yards, but these are actually quite edible. And I remember a long time ago, my grandmother on my father's side would have me pick them, and she would teach us how to coat them with egg white and sugar. So I'm not necessarily doing that now, but she would put them on our cakes and everything like that, and do the same with pansies. But you could also go ahead and put these into your salad without the sugar and the egg white on them. Which, and consequently, by the way, you can also eat the young leaves of the violet. Here's a few more things that we're going to be adding. This just happens to be some mint that was coming up from last year, and it's very happy, especially with all the wet spring that we've been getting. This is some lemon balm out of the garden. I love putting lemon balm in my salads. It makes it taste so good, and it just adds a little extra something something, as they say. These right here are my little red buds, and they'll open up and be really pretty for a while yet, so you can still look for those. And then
trees. And then this, oh, this is chickweed. Love my chickweed. This I probably could easily eat a lot of. And it just tastes so nice and crunchy. It's kind of like eating, in my opinion, like I use it as a sprout substitute. And so I'll pack it in sandwiches and on pitas, and but it's also really good too in a salad. You see its little tiny white flower that it has there. That's all edible.
So you might be thinking to yourself, why is it that I'd even want to play with this or put something wild on my salad? Well, one, partially just because it's fun and you get to taste, you know, part of nature. I mean, part of experiencing and being with the environment that's around you is tasting and smelling and feeling and being out with it. So the other thing that's really lovely too is that many of what we call weeds actually have quite a good number of minerals and nutrient content to them as well. And so they're bringing in nice flavonoids and antioxidants and things to support us. So they're lovely from that standpoint too, but it's just another way of connecting you back to nature, in my opinion, more than anything else. So here's our beautiful finished product. And if I may say so, it looks like a masterpiece in and of itself and all the beauty that nature provides. But if you want, you can add all other kinds of things. You can add some local goat cheese from Terrell Creek Creamery. Certainly you can go ahead and look in putting fruit in, nuts, seeds. Put your favorite dressing in. I typically like to do herbal vinegars or fruit vinegars that we make and dress it up that way. So have fun with this, really explore with the salads, and just adds a little bit of extra wild and something fun for your family. Have a great day.